Hello, everyone, and welcome to the initial presentation of the Bash Performing Arts Tour 2023, our trip to the United Kingdom. My name is Mr. Jordan, Mr. Michael Jordan. I have the title of Related Studies Coordinator for the school district, which means that I oversee the art, music, and library programs for the district, and I'm also the tour leader for the international trip. And you probably know me better as the band director at Middle School West. So we are very excited to present to you information about this trip to the United Kingdom, which will take place from March 29th to April 24th of 2023, so next school year. I've had the opportunity to lead tours in 2012 and 2015 when we traveled to the Czech Republic, Prague, and also to Vienna and Salzburg in Austria. And in 2018, we had the opportunity to travel to Spain, where we visited Barcelona, Burgos, and Madrid. And we were scheduled to do a trip to the United Kingdom in 2021, but because of the pandemic, we had to cancel that trip. And now we are excited that we have an opportunity to travel once again in the spring of 2023. Here are the details of the trip. So, who is eligible? In 2022-2023, so next school year, any 10th, 11th, or 12th grade student in the music department will be eligible to go on the trip. That would include students in the band, orchestra, choir, color guard, and stage crew, and that's any iteration of those groups. So for band, it doesn't matter if it's wind ensemble or symphonic band or marching band. And same thing for choir. The concert choir and mixed chorale, all those students are eligible to go as long as they're in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. Students that are going to be in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade next year would have an opportunity to travel in 2026. So this tour is a performance and cultural tour that will take place in the United Kingdom, centered around London, but we will travel to locations outside of London. And it's once again, for Boyertown Area Senior High School students. And the reason that we've chosen this location is that the United Kingdom and the City of London are major cultural centers, and students will be able to experience musical things and cultural things in this, in this fantastic location. And that'll include performances and masterclass opportunities. And why 2023? So we have a rotation, a 3-year rotation in which we do this trip, and we rotate along with the foreign language program does a trip once every 3 years, and the social studies program also does a trip once every 3 years. So our turn is 2023, and then again in 2026. And like I mentioned earlier, we had been on track to have a trip in 2021, but because of the pandemic, we had to cancel that trip, and this is the next time that we're able to do it. So when we schedule this trip, we work in partnership with a travel company, and they're called, very simply, Music and Travel. They are based in London. We have a fantastic relationship with this company. We've worked with them for more than 20 years. All of the 3 previous tours that I've been a part of were through Music and Travel. They are experts when it comes to international travel of school groups, and as the name of the company suggests, they deal with performing ensembles. This is what they do. They have a complete understanding of the situation on the ground in the UK and Europe. They're experts, and one of the reasons why we've chosen the United Kingdom is because this is where they're based. This is their backyard. They know all the venues, all of the hotels, restaurants, all the different experiences, all the tour guides. We feel very comfortable traveling to this location. So planning for this trip is on a shorter timeline than what we've had in the past. So in a typical year, we take 18 months to plan a trip. Obviously here we're operating less than a year out, so some of the things that I'm going to present to you are still, the details will need to be worked out, but we have a good outline of what we want to do with the trip, and I can share with you most of the relevant details. And some of the things that we will need to adjust is that we will have, we're not quite sure how many people are going to sign up. So that may affect some of the experiences that we're able to do. Whether or not certain performing groups will do large performances or master classes. We'll have to see how many students are involved. And what we've done, because we have a shorter preparation timeline for the trip, is we have made it shorter than it was in the past. And that is primarily to save cost, because we know that there will be fewer opportunities to fundraise for the trip and fewer opportunities just to save money for it. So we wanted to make sure we reduce the cost of the trip in order to make sure that students are able to go. So quick history of our tour. So the high school students have had an opportunity to travel internationally through music since 1975 was the very first tour. And I'm sure that some of the parents listening to this presentation probably had an opportunity to travel as students at Boyertown High School. In 1975, remarkably, the first trip was to Romania, which still is incredible to me that the first time students went overseas was to a country that at the time was behind the Iron Curtain. But they traveled to Romania. There have been trips to Germany. There were many trips to the United Kingdom, including England and Scotland. And there was a international music festival called the Harrogate Festival that they would travel to many times. Belgium was another location, France, Italy in 2009. Students traveled to Italy. And then Czech Republic and Austria were 2012 and 2015. And then the most recent trip was in 2018 to Spain. There have been over 2,000 students that have traveled internationally with the Boyertown Music Program. And this fits with our school district our mission that enable all students to succeed in a changing world. And by traveling, we are seeing that world and giving students an opportunity to learn about a different cultural and have that unique experience. We've had very successful trips. Many times, students have older siblings that have gone on these, and they come back raving about it, and they just can't wait to go themselves. As the band director at Middle School West, my students start to ask about this trip when they're in 6th or 7th grade, and it's something that they look forward to when they get to high school. My personal experience, I've been very fortunate to travel, and through music, I've been to probably, at least 10 or 12 different countries through music. And as a student, I had a chance to travel, and I felt that I learned more on those trips than I did during an entire semester of school. Just being able to see some of these remarkable locations and interacting with people in a different culture, it's really been phenomenal. And music really isn't a universal language. The response that we get when our groups perform overseas is incredible, and it's just a great way to connect with other cultures. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through the itinerary as it currently stands, and I fully anticipate that this itinerary will change before the actual trip. And so this is an outline of what we plan to do, but all the major experiences will be included, and the dates are good. So these are the dates in which we're traveling, but I'm sure that some things will change between now and the actual departure. So our departure will be on Wednesday, March 29th, and if you look at the school calendar for next year, this is the Wednesday before spring break. So we do have a full week of spring break once again in 2023. So the students will miss school. They'll probably miss some school on Wednesday the 29th, and then they'll miss full days on Thursday and Friday of that week as well. So we will meet during the afternoon, and the students will board coach buses to head to the airport. Most likely we'll be flying on British Air. Depending upon how many travelers are on the trip, it'll probably take more than one flight to get us there. In the past, we've used 2, sometimes 3 different flights to get everyone to our location. We always fly out of Philadelphia or Newark, and one of the advantages of flying to the UK is that we will have direct flights from either Philadelphia or Newark to London Heathrow, and it's approximately a 7-hour flight. So we will leave school in the afternoon, travel by bus to the airport. We'll be there probably 4 hours before our departure time, where we'll check in, go through security, and then sit and wait for our flight. It is an overnight flight, so it will be 7 hours in the air, but it'll be overnight, and we will arrive on Thursday morning. On Thursday, March 30th, we arrive in London, and we will, at the airport, we will clear immigration and customs. We will have lots of equipment that we will bring along, all of our luggage and instruments, so we'll have to account for all of that. We will meet our tour managers. There will be private coach buses waiting for us with the steering wheel on the right-hand side. And we will have an equipment truck as well to move all of our gear throughout the tour. And then we will, as soon as we land, we will get through, like I mentioned, immigration and customs. Then we board the coach buses and head to Windsor, where we see a famous Windsor Castle. In the afternoon, we will do a boat ride on the River Thames and a early dinner in a local restaurant. And then, so we'll start touring right away. And then we will transfer by coach back to our hotel, which most likely will be the Millennium Copthorne Terra Hotel in Kensington. So if you want to do a quick little Google search, you can find that hotel and see that it is pretty fantastic for our group. And Kensington neighborhood is near Kensington Palace, and there are many museums within walking distance of the hotel as well. So it is situated nicely. We will have tour managers from the travel company that will be with us for the entire trip. And, we don't need translation services because we're going to England and they speak English, but maybe we need a little translation from American English to British English. But they'll be with us the entire way to help us throughout. A couple quick pictures of the sites. That is Windsor Castle on the left, and then the boat tour on the right, with Windsor Castle in the background. On Friday, March 31st, we start our day with breakfast in the hotel. Then we will do a guided panoramic tour of London, where we will see all of the major sites. We'll have the tour guides with us on the bus, pointing things out. It'll be a combination of a bus tour, and then we'll hop off from time to time to see the sites. Lunch will be independent, meaning that students will have time on their own to eat lunch. Afternoon, we will have our first performance opportunity, and at this point we're looking at doing master classes where we will have professional musicians from London that will work with our ensembles. And then in the evening, we will eat dinner in a local restaurant. So on the tour of London, we'll see all the major sites, including the Big Ben and Parliament, the famous bridges. We will do there's Big Ben and Parliament again, and St. Paul's Cathedral on the right. Saturday, April 1st, we will once again start with breakfast in the hotel. We'll have some time here at leisure to explore the area near our hotel. Once again, there are many museums, most of which are free, but the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Science Museum, Natural History, Kensington Palace and the grounds, and Hyde Park are all within walking distance of the hotel. Then we'll return to the hotel to eat lunch. Afternoon, we will hop on the buses and travel to a town outside of London called Henley-on-Thames. We'll have a rehearsal, and for a concert that evening. Dinner will be independent in town, and the plan right now is to do a benefit concert in Christchurch in Henley-on-Thames in that town, and then we obviously come back to the hotel. So in the morning at leisure, it basically means that when we have a couple opportunities in the trip where the students get to explore, typically what happens is the chaperones, we have a wonderful team of chaperones on the trip, and the tour guides will have suggestions for the students of where they think they should go. We will have done the panoramic tour the day before, so they have an idea of things that they want to see and things that they want to visit on their own. Frequently what happens is, I may be really interested in going to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I'll tell the students the night before that, hey, this is where I'm headed tomorrow morning. Meet me in the lobby at 9 o'clock, and we'll take off and we'll go as a group. So students can go with a chaperone, but if there's a place that they really want to go see on their own, they have an opportunity to do that. Students are always traveling in groups. We take safety very seriously, and we want to make sure that they're always accounted for. But there are a couple opportunities where they're doing lunch on their own or dinner on their own, where they get to choose what they want to do at that time. So a couple of our little sites. On the left here is Kensington Palace. On the right is Henley-on-Thames. Sunday, April 2nd. Once again, start with breakfast in the hotel. We will do Palm Sunday service participation for the choir. So we will have an opportunity for the choir to perform as part of a church service that day. And once again, lunch is independent. And in the afternoon, we will visit the very famous Tower of London. So the Tower of London is, with the stories that you may have heard about it, was at certain times a fortress, certain times used as a prison, but now is looks very much like a castle, even though it's the Tower of London. And you have people that are dressed up in costume. You have some reenactments that happen, and you have the crown jewels. So there's a museum that you go into, and you get to see all of the famous crowns and diamonds and rubies from the collection of the Queen. We will visit the Tower of London. We'll do dinner in a local restaurant, and then there's the possibility of doing another tour, maybe something along the lines of the Jack the Ripper tour. So here's the Tower of London, and one of the very famous crowns that are on display in the vault. Monday, April 3rd, start with breakfast. We will have master classes once again. Lunch is independent, and then in the afternoon, students will have time for sightseeing and shopping. We'll do dinner in a local restaurant, and then we get to attend a show, a West End show. So in London, their theater district is called the West End. If you imagine what Broadway is like in New York City, this is the same setup in London, where you have major shows that are being performed, and we'll have a chance to go see one of those shows. There's a little bit of what it looks like on the West End. Tuesday, April 4th, is our return day. So we are doing breakfast in the hotel, then we will transfer by coach to the airport and board our return flights to the United States. And we will be back on that day, even though it's a 7-hour flight. We are gaining time when we come back. So we will arrive back on Tuesday, April 4th. So that's an overview of what the trip will look like. Like I said, we will fill in more details as we go, and I'm sure that certain things will change. But in the end, we get a very detailed itinerary where there are certain times where we're moving, and we may have well over 100 students on the trip, and where, to set up for a performance where we have things kind of planned down to the minute, and to make sure that things move smoothly. So we will add many details to the itinerary as we go. All right, now the portion of the presentation that everyone really wants to know is how much will this trip cost? So this is how we are pricing the trip for 2023. So like I mentioned, we have a quick turnaround in order to put this together, and which means that we will be collecting an initial payment before the end of this school year with a due date of Friday, May 27th. And that'll be a $500 payment, and $200 of that will be non-refundable. And that $500 is going to secure airspace and also a deposit for the land arrangements. So air tickets and flight plans are available 50 weeks before departure. So we want to make sure that we can secure that as soon as possible to make sure that we get the best flights and that we can get the most people on one flight or two, so that we can get there easily. And then also we need to make sure that we secure hotel space. So we're going to collect $500 before the end of this school year, and then we will have 2 large payments next school year. Wednesday, September 28th, a payment of $1,450, and then the final payment will be Friday, December 16th of $1,425 for a student total of $3,375. We also offer what we call the Adult Observer Tour, and this is for parents or other relatives that want to come along on the trip. And so the price of that trip is a little bit more because we do, typically two to a room, where the students will be 2 or 3 to a room. And we limit that trip size to 1 coach bus, which is typically about 44 people that fit on a bus. So for the student trip, we will accept as many students that want to go. For the adult trip, we're going to limit it to just 1 coach bus. So if that is something that if you are interested in the Observer Tour, I'm your contact person for that. You will reach out to me through email, and I will generate that list. And it's pretty much a first come, first served situation for the Adult Observer Tour, and I can provide more details. But basically, the Observer Tour, the trip will look almost identical. It'll be all the same experiences. The parents will attend all of the performances, but since it's a different bus, we may be doing things at a different time. So it might be that we do Tower London, but the parents are doing it at a different time of day than the students. With the trip cost, the factors that we build in, and with the trip cost, I'm going to say that this is our target. This is what we're aiming for. This is not a guaranteed price, because we're going to London, which is based in a different currency. They use the British pound, so we have to deal with exchange rates. So we're giving you the price here in dollars, but if for some reason the exchange rate were to change dramatically, that might affect the cost of the trip. Also, airline fees. We see that the price of fuel has gone way up. If for some reason there's a fuel surcharge, that may change the price of the trip. And we have manifest things as well, where we bring a lot of equipment. We have to bring instruments along with us. So we do have baggage fees. As of right now, this stuff is included in the price, but it may fluctuate a little bit. I can tell you that in the 3 previous trips that I've coordinated, 2012, 2015, and 2018, in 2012, the final cost of the trip went up by about $220. In 2015, the final cost of the trip actually went down by $200. In 2018, we were right on target. So it's probably going to change a little bit, and we will make sure to communicate that before we get to the final payment. So payments 1 and payments 2 will be exactly as they're currently listed. Payment 3 will communicate what that final number will be. So what is included in this cost? So it includes all of the airfare, round-trip airfare. We have 5 nights of hotel accommodation. Every day we will get breakfast in the hotel and 1 other meal, so either dinner or lunch. So there's 1 meal each day that is on your own, where you get to select where you want to eat. So that's not included in the total cost, but there's always 2 meals included. All the performance arrangements, land transportation, so we'll be on coach buses moving throughout the tour. We will have an instrument van with a driver for all of our equipment. Obviously, we will have tour escorts that will be with us along the way. All of the guided sightseeing tours are included. Entrance to the Tower of London. We're going to do a potential to do a backstage tour of Royal Albert Hall and the boat ride, the West End show, and also travel insurance is included as well. With travel insurance, I will provide more details with what that looks like, but we will have travel insurance included with this trip. For payment options, for the first payment, we are going to collect checks for the first payment. On previous trips, we had, we would accept checks, and we also used Easy School Pay, which is what students have used for the activity fee and for their lunch accounts. Easy School Pay won't be set up by the end of this school year, but that will be an option for next school year where you can pay by credit card. Mrs. Wagenzeller is going to be our business manager for the trip. She's one of the teachers at the high school, and she's going to be the person who is collecting the money and also doing fundraising options. So we will not have any fundraisers between now and the end of the school year, but we will have some fundraisers that will happen in the fall, probably 2 or 3, where students can build some money in their account towards the trip. When we do that, it goes towards individuals. So if you're someone who is very good at fundraising, there's an opportunity for you to offset the cost of the trip. Some people are unable to fundraise or are not interested in it. I would say for this trip, the fundraisers that we're going to do, if you really hustle, you might be able to offset the cost of the trip by $500. But this will be something where the fundraising options will be limited, and there is no way that someone's going to fundraise the entire cost of the trip through the fundraisers that we offer at school. You can sell a lot of citrus, but you will not be able to do over $3,000 worth of citrus. For previous trips, we had students that obviously had summer jobs that they helped to put towards the trip. Maybe they had a Christmas gift that was money towards the trip, or a birthday present that was money towards the trip, and we've had that in the past. But we do understand that's a tight turnaround. We feel that the cost of the trip is very affordable for what the students are getting, and we're very excited to offer it. Obviously, this trip is not required. It is something that we're offering. In the past, many students have gone, but there have always been many students that didn't go as well. We had, in the trips that I've been a part of, we've had anywhere from 120 to about 150 students that went, and then plus the chaperones, plus the adult group. We've had close to 200 people on the trip. So it is a large group, but certainly not required. Like I mentioned, there will be fundraisers available in the fall, 2 or 3, that we will have an opportunity to do. Something that you will need to take care of as soon as possible, if you're planning to go on the trip, is passport. You must have a passport to go on this trip. And the date of the passport has to be valid 6 months beyond the return date of April 4th. So if you already have a passport, you will need to double check to make sure that the date is well beyond that. Otherwise, they will not allow you into the country. That's just one of the requirements. This is something that you will want to take care of in the summer. Please do not wait. I believe that the regular passport service is a 6 to 8 week turnaround from when you first apply. You can do expedited, which is a little bit more. That's usually 2 to 3 weeks. But if you take care of it in the summer, the 6 to 8 week turnaround should be plenty of time. We will need to collect all the passport numbers and a name as it appears on the passport, all that information, that is given to the airlines before we depart, and that's how we secure our tickets. So it's very important that we have that. The Boyertown Library is a great place to take care of your passport. You can make an appointment with them, and they will walk you through the entire application process and help to facilitate that for you. It's very convenient because it's right here in Boyertown, and it also supports our library. So that is a great way to take care of it if you do not currently have a passport. When we travel, we will have 2 nurses on the tour. So students that have medications, there will be 2 nurses that will help you out. With the number of students that we have on our trip, at some point, someone will not feel well, and we have 2 nurses that will help to take care of you. If something significant were to happen, the UK has great medical care, and they will gladly help our students if that need arises. When it comes to the pandemic and COVID protocols, currently, as I'm putting together this presentation, there are no COVID restrictions for traveling from the United States to the United Kingdom, but this is a recent change. Up until a couple weeks ago, vaccination was required in order to go into public places. So if you wanted to visit any of the performance venues, museums, restaurants, you had to show proof of vaccination, but that was recently dropped. So we have to abide by the laws in London and the UK when we go. As of right now, there are no restrictions, but who knows what happens with the pandemic, and if for some reason they were to require vaccination in order to go to these places, that's something that the students would have to show proof of in order to to go to these different venues on the trip. So vaccination is not required, but certainly recommended to make sure that you're able to do everything when the trip happens. When it comes to student safety on the trip and also behavior expectations, we, in terms of behavior, we have school rules that are in effect while we're traveling internationally. We expect students to be international ambassadors of our community, and this is a trip that's been happening consistently since 1975, and the reason why it's happened is because the students have been fantastic each time, and there's been a lot of community support for that. So we really want that to continue. So we have very high expectations for behavior on the trip. When it comes to student safety, we have a great team of chaperones that are on call 24 hours a day during this trip. The chaperones will be music teachers at the high school, Dr. Foley, the principal. We'll have a counselor, we'll have nurses, and we'll have a great team that will support the students throughout. They'll be very familiar with the students as music teachers and people that work with the music program. They're always traveling in groups, and places like London and the UK are very safe locations that we're traveling to. Like I mentioned before, travel insurance is included in the cost of the trip. I will be able to provide more details on the Boyertown Music website once I receive those from the travel company. But obviously with the pandemic, we want to make sure that we have travel insurance in case something were to happen where all of a sudden we're not able to go on the trip, that we're covered that way. So that's really important to us. So for updates, information, and announcements, the go-to location right now will be the Boyertown Music website. This is the one that the Music League uses. This is where we have the fine arts calendar, but it's boyertownmusic.com, and this is where we will have information about the trip. We will also utilize an app called Band that Mr. Langdon currently uses with the band, but we will have a channel that's dedicated to the trip, so that if we have any announcements about fundraisers or upcoming payments or information that we need to get out to people, we can send out messages through the app. Boyertown Music will be the place to find out how to get on board with that app. And in order to prepare for the trip, we will have additional meetings. So next school year, we will have some in-person meetings at the high school. We plan to do one in October, one in January, and one in March that will prepare us for the trip. So obviously I haven't gone over every single detail about the trip. So things that we will talk about in the future are currency. So we'll talk about, we're going to be in England, so we need to have British pounds on hand in order to pay for things. We'll talk about spending money, a recommendation for how much we think the students will need. Basically, spending money is going to be one meal a day, and then any souvenirs that students want to buy. And if there's something else when they have free time, if they want to go to a paid museum, that would be on them. So that's kind of the expectation for spending money. We'll talk about those expenses. And in the past, we've had a representative from AAA come in and talk about some of they have like a prepaid debit card that students can use that's very convenient. We'll need to go through packing and the manifest. So we'll have a lot of equipment that we need to bring. We may have a student who plays one instrument in orchestra, a different instrument in concert band, a different instrument in jazz ensemble, and they're bringing all this equipment, and we'll talk about how we're going to manage all that and how we're packing it. We'll talk about airport procedures, what to do in the airport, and most importantly, what not to do in an airport, and then how to be a cultural ambassador. When we're traveling overseas, we're representing our community, and we want to make sure that we are excellent ambassadors as we travel internationally. So your task at this point, if you are interested in this trip, we will need the initial payment. Also on the Boyertown Music website, there's going to be a Google form that will help us to generate our spreadsheet of all of the travelers. So we'll want to fill that out to the best of your ability. One of the things that is really important is when you sign up, you want to give us your name as it appears on your passport or as it will appear on your passport. So if your name is Robert, but you go by Bobby, you want to make sure that you put your full name as it appears on your passport. So That's important to us because we submit that information to the airlines to secure our tickets, and we want to make sure that things go smoothly in the airport so that when you're checking in and you present your passport, their manifest matches exactly what's on your passport. Obviously, you'll need to have conversations at home about how to fund the trip. So, what kind of how that's going to work for you, and I suggest doing some research. Um, I really enjoy traveling, and there are many great resources out there that where you can find information about London and about England. I love travel guides because something like Rick Steves or Lonely Planet, they have great books that give you lots of neat information about where we're headed, some neat historical facts. But I highly recommend picking up one of those. This is a cultural trip. You might want to listen, find out, hey, what kind of music comes from England, whether it's classical music or British invasion rock and roll. And there's plenty of movies, TV shows that take place in England and London. So do some research, find out where we're going. Then, if you have questions, there are the easiest way to have a question answer is feel free to reach out directly to me through email. It will be the best way to contact me. And also on Monday, May 16th, I'm going to set up a Zoom meeting, and this will not be a formal presentation. It'll basically be me and maybe a couple other music teachers sitting in a Zoom meeting, and if you have a question, you can pop into the meeting and ask someone live right then and there. And so those will be your opportunity to ask questions before we have that initial payment at the end of the school year. So I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation, and I hope that I've answered most of your questions and presented to you the major outline of the trip and some details that you'll need to make a good decision about this trip. We're very excited to offer it once again. The music teachers of the high school, Mr. Cinquini and Mr. Brunner and Mr. Langdon and I have had a great time on the past 3 trips. We've traveled as a team on all of those, and it's really been a neat experience that the students rave about. Typically, it's one of their highlights of high school going on this trip. So we hope that you will join us. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.